And within the past hour or so, President Trump has said that the US has now expanded its sanctions on Iran to include the Iranian National Bank. Right, now we can speak to Nader Hashemi, who's director of the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Denver. We're lucky enough to have him here with us here in Doha. Thank you for joining us. At this point, then, we have Saudi Arabia and the United States pretty much accusing Iran of sponsoring this attack. Why is the claim of responsibility by the Houthis being dismissed?
Well, I think there's an attempt to try and squeeze Iran. The Saudis want to blame Iran. They're hoping that the United States will launch military strikes against Iran. And there's a long-standing, Trump administration policy to try and bring Iran to its knees. But I think there's a simple way out of this blame and counter-blame sort of narrative that we're seeing. I think Iran, if it claims that it's completely innocent of any wrongdoing, should support a UN-led international commission of an inquiry to determine responsibility, culpability, and then accountability. I think all of the countries have an interest in doing that. And I think that's the way out of this sort of battle of narratives that we're seeing between Tehran and Washington.
Do you think that there is going to be time and space for this kind of investigation to be approved, to be launched, and indeed to report back, given that time is of the essence? At the moment, the Saudis are saying that they are prepared to report as to exactly the launch site of these attacks. I mean, this will be pretty significant when they come up with that and they say these attacks came from the north. Where exactly? Yeah.
Well, look, Saudi Arabia does not have a good track record when it comes to the truth. I think no one takes them seriously, particularly under the rule of this crown prince, given what he did to Jamal Khashoggi, which is why we need a UN independent-led inquiry to, get to the bottom of this and then to sort of assign blame and demand accountability. So if Saudi Arabia is so sure that Iran is responsible, they have an interest in supporting a UN-led inquiry. And same with Iran. If Iran claims it's completely innocent, then why not have this matter investigated? There's no urgency. I disagree with that. I think it's the interest of the international community, of international peace and security, to have that inquiry and to move forward according to what international law wants.
It seems very much as though the locked and loaded rhetoric, the bellicose rhetoric of Washington of a couple of days ago has been dialed down somewhat. And President Trump, as we've just said, is increasing sanctions. It seems very much, for now, that's going to be the US response. But at the same time, the Iranian rhetoric has heated up, has become more muscular. And we've just heard, haven't we, from the former Revolutionary Guard commander and indeed the foreign minister. The language is really getting tougher.
Well, I think Tehran is worried of a response from the United States. But the problem really is in Washington, D.C. It's pretty clear that Trump doesn't know what he wants to do. And he really is responsible for getting us to this point of a potential war when he began this process of starting a conflict with Iran, pulling out of the nuclear agreement, and getting us to the tragedy that we're seeing unfolding in front of us.
Nonetheless, we do have the UN General Assembly starting in earnest next week. It has actually got underway, but the leaders attend next week. And we learned that President Rouhani, as well as Zarif, the foreign minister, they've been given visas to go. Do you think that there is any scope for there to be a back channel communication, perhaps the most we could hope for at this point?
No, I think this is a unique opportunity because all of the key players will be there. Trump will be there, the Iranians will be there, the Saudis will be there, and critically, the French president will be there. If your viewers might remember, just a few weeks ago, there was talk of a French proposal that might sort of break this logjam, allow for some sort of negotiation to take place based on, partial relief of Iranian sanctions. So I think what happens at the UN next week will really set the course for the next coming months, whether we're headed toward war and conflict or upon a potential diplomatic breakthrough.
Nader Hashemi, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.